Gaming is fun, yeah? And school isn't, but it is important. But what if I want to play a game in school and we're in a magical time before students could just whip out their phones? That's where, for a generation and a half, a bunch of different browser-based games came in. From Flash games to .io and even a couple Chrome extensions, I played a fair few different things in class, especially before any of my teachers actually understood what we were doing. Today we're going to take a little trip down memory lane and explore a couple of these games. Flash games were, especially if you jumped onto this train a little earlier than I did, the main source of easy-to-run games for a lot of us. These eventually fell a bit for me in school once IT departments slowly started to block the sites we used, but they were still a lot of fun. Flash games are where a lot of my more dear memories of playing games in school actually happened, and because of that, here are a few I remember. Run 3 is where you run. That's kind of it. A small runner platformer with a lot of different levels and even a couple different unique playable characters. It's fun when it runs. See, the big thing I remember about this game back in school was it running like absolute shit on anything and everything we tried to run it on. And even now, on my much nicer computer and with actual functional internet, it still runs pretty poorly. Maybe this is Cool Math Game's fault, maybe it's not, but it lags hard. That, on top of the controls being floaty, makes this game something I was happy enough to play with for a few minutes back in school, but not something I ever really needed to play again. Red Ball is one of my favorites. Another 2D platformer, something at the time pretty common. The original Red Ball has a lot of good memories for me. Controls, again, are a little with them being both way too heavy and way too light at the same time, and actually finding the game is... You know what? Mind a quick tangent. If you didn't already know, Adobe dropped support for Flash a few years back, and that poses a pretty huge issue for all of these older Flash game sites. In the years since, many have made tools to either port Flash games or make Flash emulators to bring them back, and to be fair, many are doing great jobs at that, but some are just really hard to find. Red Ball 1 specifically was so annoying to find and record that the footage here is taken from a privated video from a while back. Slitherio, a game I wanted to talk about later as I have a lot of good memories of it too, just outright didn't work. It just didn't. Anytime I tried to play it, it would get stuck loading forever. Now, it's not Flash based, but both these kind of run into this big problem with just the outright non-existent preservation of digital media. But you know what? While I could go on a rant for hours about this, please go watch either Quentin Reviews or Blame It on George talk about this, because they're doing better than me, and this tangent has gone on so long enough. So, but dang it, this game is just really fun. Only about 13 levels, so it was quick enough that I could finish it before the teacher would either find out or get mad. The main thing though, above all else, I remember and love in this game is the music. I don't even really know how to properly describe it, besides just being this kind of really rad, funky beat. Red Ball is a great little game, and yeah, there are far better things I can play today, so I don't really return much, but I enjoyed the memories this little game gave me, and I enjoy looking back. Oh, also, it has too many goddamn sequels, but those were way after my time, and I never really enjoyed the couple I played, so we're skipping them. I don't need to explain these games to you. You already probably know what these were like if you, like me, grew up in the early 2000s or even the early 2010s. You knew the Papa's games, and to this day, they're still some of the most successful Flash games to ever come out, and they've been ported to anything with a screen. In these, or at least these old ones, you're an off-the-street hire in charge of serving food to customers and adding whatever the hell they want in an expanding list of items to their order. Now, for this video, I played Papa's Pizzeria and Papa's Burgers, as these were the two I remember most, but others have you running pretty much any and every fast food you can imagine. Unlike the first two games today, these are by far the most complicated, with difficulty rising with you trying to juggle orders while keeping up quality. When going back, I kind of forgot how well these hold up. Obviously, these little Flash management games aren't going to blow you away or anything. These are browser games made in 07 and 2010. Even 30-year-old management games are going to be a little more in-depth, but taking orders, making them, eventually balancing multiple orders, and or cooking while taking orders is actually pretty fun. I really do get why little me had so much fun in these. Hell, unlike most of the other games where I played just long enough to get the footage I needed, the Papa's games, especially the burger one, were actually good enough that I just kinda forgot I was doing video and just played them for a second. Papa's games are really good, and unlike the rest, they're actually really easy to find today with both mobile and PC ports available. Okay, I really don't actually know if anyone else has heard of this one. I was kind of always the little weirdo at school for playing this, but I don't care. Sandcastles is fun as hell. In this little game, you take control of a castle with many different types of catapults and or guns to try to destroy a little floating fleet attacking you. I don't really remember why I loved it so much back then, but damned if I didn't, and I honestly still think the game holds up pretty decently. The controls are kind of funky. Friv, the one site I could actually find it on that worked, has it stuck in this tiny little screen, but I still loved it. Nostalgia almost assuredly does play a part in this. Every time in 6th grade when I had some free time, I booted up Sandcastle while blaring FNAF music because, cringy young me aside, I was really glad to come back to see this game actually holding up pretty well. Even if it has its quirks, it's still really fun. Play it if you can find a copy. It won't blow you away or anything, but it'll be a fun, quick game. GIO Games came out just as I was ready to head into middle school. While I do have a lot of memories playing these games, I have a lot less to say about them, especially when 2 out of the 3 games I was going to talk about just didn't work. So this segment's going to be a little quicker. These together were the big 3 for me. In Agario, you play as a blob that tries to eat other blobs to grow bigger. In Slitherio, you play a snake that grows bigger by eating pellets, but dies if you hit another. Pretty much it's a multiplayer version of Snake from Nokia and Google. In Wings.io, you're a plane that dogfights others. Out of these 3, Slitherio was by far my favorite. Wings was good, but ran like absolute shit on the early Chromebooks I had to use. Agario, always to me, besides being an ad-infested pain in the ass, had a lot of weird difficulty that just made it hard to play. Slitherio made me feel like there was a chance I could hit the top score, even though I never got anywhere close. Either way, these were fun little time wasters, and the feeling as if I was playing a multiplayer game was really cool to little me, even if how real these other players is a topic of some pretty intense debate. Alright, so you might see that title card and say, what? Chrome extensions? You mean that thing I used to edit PDFs and block ads before Google removed that? Yep, one and the same. See, let me paint a quick picture for you. The big enemy of our tale today, school IT guys, have finally started getting wise to the tricks of our students, using Flash-based or IO sites. Many by now were being blocked, or schools started to roll out programs like GoGuardian to monitor students' screens, letting them lock down or just close anything they didn't like. This made gaming hard for us pesky middle schoolers as well, and now most of us did have phones, smart ones specifically. Using them in class was also super not allowed, and at the most mild sign of one, teachers would take it and lock it up. So what were we to do? Use these weird extensions, of course. These were popular, at least in my school, because they couldn't actually be seen while we were playing them. It actually became a running joke in my 8th grade English class that the second we got any work done, we'd all jump into different games and the teacher would know because everyone would be sitting blankly at a still screen. If I remember correctly, there were a few different games, but the only one I actually really remember was, well, several versions of Tetris. These games honestly really sucked more than anything else I've talked about today, with some of the worst controls and worst reliability, but because we were desperate for something, these did become something a lot of us did. By high school, a lot of stuff had changed. For one, school IT departments and teachers were starting to get a lot more wise to our shenanigans, and also a lot of them just started to be a lot more lenient with us, making this whole clandestine hiding a lot less necessary. Second, and honestly infinitely more importantly, we all had smartphones by then, and not just had them, we were allowed to use them. Like, back in middle school, they would take your phone if it was out of your locker. Come high school, a lot of stuff changed. Hell, by the end of high school, we needed our phones due to the lockdown and the full digitization of our education. From here on out, no one really did anything else anymore, because why would you? Why Google a little Flash game and risk getting a bad look from the teacher when you could just browse Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok instead? While I walked away from Flash games, and I've been kind of tearing them a new one in this video, I do actually hold a lot of these games fondly. While I had a lot of consoles growing up, my family just kind of never really bought games for them. So a lot of my early gaming memories, especially before I actually had a computer of my own, were these little oddities that could only really exist in this one little moment of history. I was around just late enough to have these sort of websites to play with, just early enough for them not to be all torn down. At least, not till I was done with them.